Hi, it's Julie Hill. I'm an independent Kazaz consultant here today, and I am going to show you a little bit about how to use the Kazaz alcohol markers. Now, I am far from a colouring expert. If you want expert colouring, go search somewhere else. The alcohol markers are similar to Copic or Copic markers because they're an alcohol-based marker. We at Kazaz are actually in the process, we're going to be getting a different style of marker soon, but they will work in exactly the same way. And currently you can actually get these markers in the freebies that are getting given away. This is in April 2018. So if you'd like to try some for free, simply place an order with the Kazaz. The link will be below, and for each $20 you get to choose a freebie, and there's lots of colours listed on the freebies at the moment. These ones have a brush tip end, which you can see there, and they also have a chisel tip end. Now the new ones that we're getting, they expect to come around about June, will have a bullet tip end instead of this chisel tip, which I actually think will be better, but these ones are still great too, and I will show you a little bit about how to use that. So I'm going to do a couple of different colouring techniques with you, just to show you a bit of variety of things that you can use them for. First one is just straight colouring. So you can simply take the lid off and colour. Now these images are all stamped using Memento ink. It's important to use a water-based ink when you're colouring with the alcohol markers. If you use a solvent-based ink, such as the StazOn ink, it can react with the markers and bleed, so you don't want that happening. Now all I'm doing here is just colouring. Now sorry about that. So I'm just colouring, just doing small little strokes because I'm colouring a small area. And you'll find that unlike textures and things, it all blends out and you get a nice smooth finish. So it's great to just do a nice smooth finish colouring. So once again, just colouring. It's good to work in small areas, but you can do bigger areas as well. So these cute little birds just got a little blue body, and colour the little wings in with the pink. So that's that. And then on the little snail, I'm just going to use some caramel and just run it around. And you can see you don't have to be really careful, you don't have to be a colouring expert. I'm really quite rough when I colour a lot of the time. If you want a bit of shadow, you can bring in a little bit of shadow just with the one colour. So you can see I'm just gently going around the edge there, and it does just give a slightly darker line. If you keep going over it, it will get darker and darker. So if I keep going around that line, bring it into the middle, I will get a slightly darker effect on it. It's a little bit hard to see, but I will try and get that in. You can see that there is a bit of a slight difference, which just makes his shell stand out a little bit more. And then we're going to colour his body in with the green. Now, these are part of a workshop set, which I will show you at the end of this video once I finish them. I'm just colouring that in, and just a bit of a pink flower as well. These are going to get cut out, so I don't have to worry about going out the lines too much. Easy done. Next thing I'm going to show you is how I've coloured this little beehive, and that's simply a case of flicking from the side. So this is a great way of getting a bit of colour on and not coming all the way. So just flicking as you go, like so. And then what I'm going to do is just come along the bottom here and along these lines just to darken those up a little bit. And there you've got your little beehive. So it doesn't have to take ages. You can do it as complex or as simple as you like. And with the bears, I have done a bit more shading on those. So I'm just using the vanilla, and I'm just going to colour in his little nose area here. Once again, it doesn't really matter if you go out. And the colours bleed themselves in. Now it is important too, as I said about the Memento ink, to use cardstock that is suitable. All of the Kazaz Ivory, which is what I'm working on here, and the white card, which is what I was working on here, our smooth ivory and smooth white, 250 GSM, so nice and thick, is perfect for colouring with the alcohol markers. Now what I'm going to do with this bear is I'm going to colour with brown sugar. Now these are getting cut out, but they will be cut out with a slight edge around them. I'm going to use the matching dyes. So I do want to stay within the lines. So what I tend to do is just go around the outside edge. Just put down some colour basically. These bits I can kind of just flick it up a bit. As you can see, I'm not being super duper careful. You don't need to take forever. Just basically get the colour down. And turn your paper so you get a better angle, however you like to colour. It's easier than trying to put your hand at a funny angle. Then what I'm going to do is just get the chisel tip and get that on. Now you do need to kind of, with an area this size, you need to try and kind of work reasonably quickly. Oops, I should have gone around that area as well. But you can see you can just bring it in with this. So now I've got the basic colour down. I do want to colour that, and it'll be a little bit lighter because it had a little bit darker because it had the vanilla on there. Now I'm going to come in with some of the caramel and just go over where I want it a little bit darker. So we want a little bit of shadow along here, where there would be a shadow from having his arms crossed. And maybe a little bit underneath as well. Where these spots are, a little bit to darken it up. A little bit along that line there. The same on this side, and again on this line. And in the ears I like a little bit of darkness in there. And maybe just a little bit along here. And then you go back in with your brown sugar again, and you can just sort of blend those lines out a bit. So just basically pulling the ink around, and usually go over the other areas as well, just to make sure they're blended nicely. So nice, quick, simple colouring. Nothing too fancy at all from me. And you can just darken up these bits as well if you want to. Blend these out. You need to work quickly so you get it sort of before the ink dries too much. It won't blend as well if it has dried. You can still blend it though. So I'm just going to do flicking again right along this edge, and that'll just make it a little bit darker. And a little bit darker in under there. And blend this out a little bit more as well. Sometimes I also find when you're colouring with the alcohol markers, I used to look at it and I go, oh, it's yuck, you know. But once you let it sit, it also then sort of tends to blend itself together a bit more as well. So just blending that in a bit more. Just going over these in nice simple strokes just to sort of get the smoother texture to it. Same with this, just going over them, which just blends out that colour that I put down, the darker colour. And going around this one a bit more. Trying to blend that in a little bit more. And making it all a bit even, because as I said, it does build up colour the more you go over it. So we'll just do that. I don't really like the way that's come out, so I'm just going to colour over it a bit more. If your markers are starting to run dry, it will be a bit harder to blend them together. Luckily they're not too expensive, they're only $6.95 each, so you can just replace them. And that's that done. So there's my little bear ready to go. Now another thing I wanted to show you was colouring on plastic. So I have stamped these images on our plastic sheet, and I've stamped them with stays on. As I said before, stays on will run if you put the alcohol markers on it. So what we do is just flip them over, and I've just got this sitting on white so that you can see it. So flip it over so you're working on the back. Now when you colour with these, I'll just use a dark colour to show you. If you colour, you can put the colour down fairly quickly. If you try and go over that, it moves the colour around, and you often end up with a worse colour if you try and keep going over it. So you are best to just get the colour down in one swipe if you can. You're not going to be able to blend the same on the plastic sheet as what you can on the cardstock. So with these, I'm just colouring them in yellow, and I've obviously, you can see there, the eye's gone. I've obviously flipped it up the wrong way, and I'm working on the side that I stamped on. So I'll just flip it up the other way and do it properly. That's better. Got my images mixed up. So as you can see, I'm just putting it down basically in one go. You're not going to get a perfect coloured image, but if you can try and get it down in one go, it won't look too bad. And it does take a second longer to dry. Now we're not using this Beehive, we're going to use the other one that we coloured over here. And on the vine here, we're just going to use some olive, which is a nice dark green. Now you will find darker colours will come up better on the plastic because they are very pale. If you put this olive on here, you can see it's quite a dark colour, but on the plastic sheet it's much lighter. You can just quickly colour in the little leaves. At the end of this video, I will show you the images. Now one other thing that I should mention to you is there is also a clear blender available, and the clear blender will move the ink around, which can help you to blend it or help you to fix up any mistakes. So I've done that. I'll grab the clear blender and it will move it, and it basically erases it almost. It's got a bit of brown on there, just rub that off on some scrap paper and that will come out again, so don't stress about that. But even on your cardstock, you can move your ink around with it. Just put it on, you can see that green there is getting lighter. And you can keep doing it. And remember, it's not actually erasing it, it's moving it. So if I hold that up a bit closer, you can see that it has got this little line just along here, and that's because it has moved it. If you actually just put the tip on and hold it there, the ink will soak into the paper and it will start to move the ink that's there. I'm not sure if you can see that in there. Oops, a bit hard to hold. But you can see that green line has started to move. You can see it there, it has started to move. And that clear blender, you can see the patches of it at the moment, but usually when it dries you can't see that. So it's really good if you've made a mistake and you've gone outside the lines, you can also just bring it in a little bit and just sort of push the ink back within the lines of your work. So a few different things you can use with the blenders. You could also blend these out a little bit if you wanted to. Run that over and just sort of move them around a little bit as you go along there. So that's an introduction, very basic, to the alcohol markers. Now, so the other thing I should tell you is the alcohol markers can be used to colour all of your embellishments. Your ribbons, your rhinestones, your buttons, your metal embellishments, your pearls, pretty much anything can be coloured with the alcohol markers. Which means they're great because you can coordinate things. You don't have to have packets and packets of different coloured ribbons and different coloured rhinestones and different coloured pearls. You can just have the plain white, the plain clear, and colour anything with your alcohol markers, and then they'll match your project really well. So if you've got any questions about them, please get in touch. You can comment below on YouTube, or you can contact me via Facebook or via my blog. Feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions, and there is a link below to have a look at the great range that we have. Thanks very much for watching.